Hey, what's up? My name is Alfredo Mancuso, and today I'm going to show you how to do the crank arm slide.
What's happening, guys? Don't mind the vintage Alfredo footage. It's just going to be something that's going to help us for today. And what day is today? Tuesday. So that means that we have How to Tuesday. And for today's installment, I'm going to be showing you guys how to crank arm grind, which is probably the second or third most requested how-to I've had. But I just wanted to take the time and do a really good one. And I wanted to find this footage that John Hicks and I filmed back in the day to really give you guys obviously the high-end video quality that John Hicks always provides, and to build on that tutorial that I've already done. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get to it.
So for the crank arm grind, you're going to want to be pretty comfortable doing basic double pegs, ice picks, feebles. You find a nice little round rail. It's probably not too tall, but you can't have it be too short or else your tire is going to drag on the ground.
As I explained in the original how-to, the crank arm grind is something that you don't really focus on 100% on the crank arm. As you can see, I have scuffs all down the crank arm, but also the pedal. So what you're really going to want to do is, as I explained earlier, you're going to want to hook that pedal onto the rail. So let me show you that. Alright, this is a bit hard to film and show you guys, but I'll do my best. But as you can see, you want your crank arm to be kind of like hooked between the pedal and the side of the crank arm, and you're going to want to be leaning. So you're going to want to have the bike obviously somewhere between 45 and 55 degrees. And what it does is it creates kind of like a point where your crank arm and your pedal are hooked on the rail, and it's like allowing you to balance back and forth, but then you don't have to fight it as much. Also, a lot of people kind of sneak their shoe on there a little bit, so you can kind of use your heel and your toe. I don't recommend it too much, but it does help when you're learning.
You want to come at it just like you would a double peg, hop parallel to the rail, and then at the last second you're going to want to do a very slight opposite kick out. Most people think a crank arm is 100% of the crank arm, but it's actually like 60-40 between a pedal and a crank arm.
Much like I explained in my earlier tutorial, you're going to want to have double pegs dialed before you try the crank arm grind, and to know how to lean back and forth and that kind of stuff. So get that out of the way. I mean, some people are pegless, and I guess they learn them without knowing how to do double peg grinds, but I find that a little more difficult than it should be. So have double pegs or feeble grinds, maybe even ice picks already in your repertoire.
I've actually got a little groove here from where the rail actually hits the crank arm, but then the pedal also has grind marks here, as you can see, or here, from where I'm kind of cupping the rail and the crank arm together. Once you get pretty comfortable on it, you can go faster. You can do it up rail, down rail. You can add some steves to it. When you do it, you want to be pretty confident with it. You don't want to half-ass it, or else you're going to flip over. It's not going to be pretty. So.
Okay, so for this trick, it's honestly going to be a lot of trial and error, more than all the advice I can offer in this tutorial. But let's begin. So approach the rail. Roughly you want to go parallel to the rail, but when you hop, you're going to want to turn and twist your back end. So as you can see here, as I'm hopping, I'm kicking out the back end the opposite way that I normally grind. So obviously I'm left foot forward, so I'm going to kick it out to the right. And like many of my tutorials, I like to break it down that you have to do, you don't have to, but it helps to do tricks the certain way according to your foot placement. So for crank arm grinds, if you're left foot forward and you spin to the right, you're going to want to be doing it with your left foot. The important part is that it's your front foot. I mean, if you're goofy footed and you spin to the left and you grind on the right, you're still going to have to do it with your front foot. If you do it on the back foot, it's just not going to really work. And then when you're riding next to the rail, you're going to hop and slightly kick out the back end, somewhere between 45 to 55 degrees, and then you're going to place your pedal and crank arm down over the rail. And you're going to want to lean. Most of your weight should be kind of centered, but you want to slightly lean up and over the rails. So my left shoulder and then the handlebars and the front wheel are going to be kind of leaning on the left side of the rail, and then you're going to use the back end and then your right foot and kind of your hips and your butt on the right side of the rail, and that's going to create the teeter-totter effect for the crank arm. Then the rest is just a balancing act of leaning forward and backwards and a little bit sideways, left to right. But again, this trick is a little harder to explain unless you're trying it. Once you kind of start trying it a couple times, then you'll get the idea. Another thing I recommend is you can kind of start learning it by stalling. So just go really slow, almost at a crawling speed, and then hop onto the rail. Again, same motion as everything. So then just put your foot and pedal on the rail and kind of just try and balance it as long as you can. Don't worry about grinding, just worry about kind of balancing it out. All right, once you kind of get that motion, then you can start speeding things up and going a little quicker and trying to grind a little longer. And I find that the longer you want to grind, the more you really want to stay hooked. So the more you're going to want to lean onto the rail and over. So again, left foot forward. So I'm going to be leaning to the left, and I'm going to kind of want to keep the bike more left and then use my arms a little bit and my hips to stay right and kind of like just balance it out that way. Sorry, I got a text. Again, it's pretty simple. Just kind of like ride parallel to the rail, hop, do the little 45-degree kick out, get your pedal and your crank arm on the rail, and then kind of like, you know, try and use your heel and your toe a little bit to balance yourself out. And that's about it. So getting off is pretty easy. You kind of either grind the whole way up and off the rail, or you kind of like just bunny hop and yank your back wheel back over. So again, this is one of those tutorials that it's going to be helpful to maybe like watch it on your phone while you're trying it, because it's something that you're going to want to kind of like start feeling out, and then once you're on the rail and like you're balancing out back and forth, then you kind of get the concept of what I'm speaking about. But like anything, just give it a go, you know? As far as troubleshooting goes, I think the major things that I see people, you know, fail with the crank arm grind is either they're trying to go either 290, so like you're hopping and you're twisting and kicking the back end out way too far. You're going too slow. So another secret is that as you're approaching the crank arm, you almost want to like minimize the bunny hop to where you're almost manualing onto it, because you want to land really gently. It's not like a double peg where you just hop and try and like get on any which way. The more smooth and, you know, like gracefully you get onto the rail with your foot and the crank arm, the easier and the longer it'll slide. But some people I notice like bunny hop and kind of like get up too high and slam down. That's going to be another thing that's going to, you know, cause you to struggle all day. So when you're hopping and you're putting your foot, pedal, and crank arm on the rail, you don't want to step down too hard, because that's going to kind of like spring you up and over. That's going to actually come in handy when you want to do crank arm to hop overs. But for this, you know, you want to like, again, land smooth, gracefully, and then just kind of like balance and teeter-totter. So another problem is that some people, they rely on too much crank arm or too much pedal. If you're doing too much pedal, you're actually going to be almost like parallel with the rail. You're not going to be sideways enough. And if you're using too much crank arm, then you're going to be too sideways on the rail, and that's going to cause you kind of like spin out. Another one is that people ride too closely to the rail before they hop, and they'll snag their pegs or cranks or something up in like when you're going onto the rail, so you want to avoid that. Let me do a couple more grinds, and then I'll figure out other things that I think are going to be pretty detrimental to you getting the proper crank arm in. All right, and there you have it. There's some crank arms for you. So the cool thing about filming your own tutorials is that I'm actually making them and explaining them while I'm filming it. And, you know, I get to see the things that I'm recommending and then the things that I think I need to explain further. So while I was doing the crank arm again, I realized three things. Number one, when you lean too far back, that'll cause you to drag the back tire on the ground, and you'll see in some of these takes that I've done that. But your back tire tapping the ground is kind of like a safety net. Like if you feel like you're leaning too far back, you can kind of like set your back tire down, and then that'll help you from like looping out completely. And then another time is if I lean too far forward, then I'll either tap the front peg, as you see here, or then I tap the front tire on the ground, as you saw there. That's gonna be like two of the issues, but those are actually good issues because that means that you're actually progressing and you're moving further along in the trick. Also, bailing. But it's gonna be very important that you guys figure out how to bail from the crank arm. As you can see here, what I do is I kind of like step down a little harder and just kind of like hop over the bike and the rail. You want to be really careful when doing this because you could get really tangled up in the bike. If you kick it, you're gonna fall over, and the worst part is that if your bike's right in front of you, you're very susceptible to fall on it, so be careful. Another thing when bailing is you want to kind of like let the bike absorb all the damage, obviously. So when you're about to like fall over or anything like that, kind of like throw the bike into the rail and then use that little bit of momentum to push yourself off to the side or like hop away from the crash scene altogether. But yeah, bailing, very important to this trick. Honestly, this one is one of the tricks that even to this day, I need to try it like 4 or 5 times on certain things before I can get it really good. And even then, if I don't do it for like a week, I feel like I lose it again. I have to like brush the cobwebs off. And the third thing, pedals. You're gonna go through your pedals. Check it out. So as you can see, this is just from today. So I grinded that rail a lot of times so I can show you. So a good piece of advice for your pedals, If you're someone like me that does a lot of tail whips and you do crank arms, then you're gonna wanna often replace your pedals. But to avoid that, what you can do is designate a side of your pedal that you're gonna be grinding on, and then a side that you're gonna use to like always stand on. So yeah, if you can see, one side of my pedal is a lot further gone than the other. Sometimes I do grind on it, but I usually try and stick to that one side. That way I know that that pedal is not the best one for catching tail whips, and I try and avoid it when doing so. But yeah, the crank arm is a super dope trick. You know, a lot of the dudes in OSS really kill him, like Began does him really well. Ethan Corrier, I think, has the best crank arm, hands down, in BMX right now. Kevin Crowley's another one that really did it well. But yeah, it's a super fun trick. It's gonna take you a little while to learn just because it is a very like nuanced trick. So you're really gonna wanna get the fundamentals down, and then just like I said, be pretty smooth about it, and you have to be very confident about it because it is kind of like a trick that puts you in a precarious position. Anyhow, as always, thank you for watching this video. And I know you guys are gonna have comments about old me, you know, like obviously that's like a 5 or 6 year old video, so I looked a little thinner, but honestly, I think it's the beard, guys. Like, so this beard makes me look a little rounder, but you know, I'm gonna trim it up or probably shave it one of these days, and then I'll, you know, resemble that figure in that other video. Thanks again for watching. If you guys made it all the way to the end, I really appreciate it. If you guys are those that like the video before you even watch it, I really love you. But trust me, I work really hard on all the videos, so what's there not to like, right? And as always, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And tune in for tomorrow's episode where I'll be in downtown LA, so I'll be catching up with the crew. I know you guys really like seeing the OSS crew, so I'm gonna give you guys what you want. So yeah, have a great rest of your day, guys, and have a good night, or a good morning, or a good week, or whatever. Just make it good. Later. That was all. Hope you have fun, and tag me on Instagram with some cool crank arms or something, at Alfredo Mancuso. So let's get to it. And for this week's installment of Tech Thursday, I'm going to be showing you guys how to true a wheel, both the professional way, with a truing stand, and the ghetto way, using zip ties, scissors, and a spoke wrench. All right, so let's begin. So for starters, you're going to need a truing